If you cannot afford grad school and pay for it all on your own, then you are vulnerable to drowning in student debt. So today we are discussing 5 main questions that you need to ask your department before ever accepting a graduate school offer. These questions will help you get more funding so you can be a little bit more financially stable in grad school. So the first question that you need to ask your department before accepting a graduate school offer is straight up asking, do you ensure your graduate students are fully funded? A lot of graduate programs are pretty elusive and vague when they talk about funding packages. And a lot of times when you're inquiring about grad funding or what funding packages could look like, a lot of departments are going to hit you with very vague statements like, we take care of our students, or we make sure our students are doing fine, or you'll be all right. But when it comes down to it, you and the department might have completely different definitions of the word fine or all right. And so they may be saying these things because they understand a lot of their students may have access to privileges like family wealth, or like they have a large savings on their own, or maybe are comfortable with student debt. But if you're somebody who does not have access to financial wealth and you don't want a ton of a debt, the word fine may actually not mean fine at all, and it may be extremely financially unstable or feeling overwhelmed. And so it's important to come out right out the gate once you receive an offer to see if your department will support you or ensure that you will be fully funded. From here, you can have a great idea if your department is going to expect you to take out loans, or if they're going to be hands-on to help you find funding, or if they're going to give you funding straight off the bat. Now, if they do say yes, they do help you become fully funded, that doesn't quite mean that all of your problems are resolved. And that's because, again, the term fully funded may mean something completely different than what you are expecting it to. And so I have a whole video that talks about the truth about grad funding, and that'll go into the nitty details of what does it mean to be fully funded and what does it mean to not be. So if you're very confused or want to know more information about that, I will link that in the end screen and you can watch that next. But it's important to then figure out, well, what do they mean by fully funded? And that's where this next question comes in. And this next question asks, what type of financial support make up most graduate student funding packages? Like I was just explaining, fully funded doesn't necessarily mean they're just going to give you a large lump sum of money. A lot of graduate programs kind of pull together different monies from different locations and resources to make a funding package. And so when you are reaching out to your department, you kind of want to get an idea, are you going to be expected to work? Are there stipends? Are there fellowships, grants, or other responsibilities that you'll be required to do or to accept if you were to receive this funding package? And so if you're somebody who wasn't expecting to work in grad school, or if you were planning to keep one of your full-time jobs or a part-time job on the side, you may want to ask this question to get a better idea of what will your time commitment in grad school look like so you can recalibrate your expectations. In some cases, you may be able to get a funding package that is mostly grants or stipends, but in other cases, you may be expected to work for your money. And this is important information to know so you can prepare and negotiate for yourself in the best way possible. Another thing that comes with asking the question about what is the typical funding package of a graduate student in their department is that you get a good idea if a lot of graduate students in their department are depending on external funding sources, or if they are depending on working or student loans. Again, this will help you conceptualize what are your red flags and what are your green flags to continue or to leave the department. Now, say you've asked these first 2 questions and they're pretty vague or elusive or hesitant to answer your questions, and they're just not giving you the hard details. Then the next question you want to ask, to be as straightforward as possible, is what percentage of your graduate students do you consider fully funded? Sometimes schools have very specific and good funding package for a small amount of student, while others will have to kind of scrape and figure things out on their own. Other schools or universities may try to fairly distribute money equally, but these are important things to kind of consider depending on what your circumstances are and what your expectations are. So if you're asking your department what percentage of your students are fully funded, it gives you a good idea of just how much financial support graduate students are getting in the department. And because this is kind of like a percentage or a ballpark figure, you should expect them to be pretty honest with you. The other reason you want to ask this question about percentages is because it gives you a good overview of what your other graduate students are also dealing with, which can help you get some insight on, department culture, expectation, and even possible stress levels. And this is all important when you're thinking about your full graduate experience and what you want to get out of the department. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that if you are talking to your department and it's your dream school and dream program and they're not giving you a lot of funding, or students aren't generally well funded, that it's an automatic get the heck out of there. Though in many cases it might be. And that's why you want to ask this fourth question. And that is, how much support does the department give to graduate students to gain grad funding? Now, a lot of departments and universities in general may have infrastructure or resources embedded into their program to help graduate students succeed, even if they themselves don't have the funding or financial backing to support you. And so some departments or universities may have workshops, training sessions, entire classes, all built around helping you either prepare for postdocs, fellowships, grant applications, and on and on. Now, many departments may not. And so again, this question will help you get a good idea of a department culture, but also if you're going to have support independent of their ability to give you money or not. A lot of the times I say, especially in one of my past videos, that when it comes to winning grants and fellowships, it's not about who's better or whose research is more developed, but rather who has the most support. So even if your department may not have the financial backing to give you a great funding package, if they are giving you the support and training to help you develop applications and pursue grants and fellowships that will have good financial backing, that is a great sign that this department is invested in your success. If you are uncomfortable with depending on student loans and 90% of students are using student loans, then you kind of have a good idea that that's probably going to be the way you are too. But if all of the graduate students, or the majority of them, are also getting good grants from external funding, then that probably means that they have good support, which leads to the next question. Now, this next question isn't really a question, but rather a series of questions or things that you should do. And that is, if your grad funding package isn't enough for you to live off of, if it is not enough for you to successfully or sustainably live and go to grad school, then you should negotiate your package. And so within this negotiation, you should generally ask, can you give me more money? Can you support me in other ways? Can you help me find other grants? Can you help me find other resources? Now, negotiating your offer is often easier said than done, and I'm not gonna come here and say that I'm an expert because I didn't do a good job of it my first go around. But I will say negotiating your offer is very important if you are not given enough money to sustainably go to grad school. You should not be expected to suffer or to live below the poverty line to be a graduate student. You should be able to advocate for yourself, and negotiating your offer is one way to do it. Now, if you're concerned that somebody will take away your offer or reject you for negotiating, that's not quite how it works, because a lot of graduate departments are funded based off of a ratio between how many offers they submitted and how many acceptances they've received. And so generally, if a department has offered you an acceptance letter, they really want you to accept it because that impacts their future funding numbers, but it also impacts their level of prestige or how they're ranked within the university. So don't feel like you're going to experience negative results from negotiating, though I will say don't be a jerk about it. Now, of course, negotiating your offer is much, much, much easier if you've received multiple grad school offers with funding packages that are better than the original offer. This way you can just straight up say, hey, I got an offer from this other university that is giving me this much. Can you match it? Or, hey, this university was able to give me this scholarship. Do you have something that's comparable? This type of conversation is pretty straightforward, and it is a form of negotiation because you're leveraging your option. That doesn't mean if you don't have an offer, you can't negotiate. It just means you need to be really upfront and honest about your needs and what type of funding or support you are looking for. So having a good idea of the numbers or the expectation you have and how they can help you get there is a great way to start your negotiation. So if you're from out of state or you are a parenting graduate student and you need support, saying those things, I am coming from another state, I have dependents, I need to have at least this much, can you help me get closer to that number, is a great way to start your negotiation. Now, of course, when it comes down to it, deciding if a graduate program is going to be worth it to you or if you're going to pursue student loans is a deeply personal and individualized experience and decision. And it all comes down to what is best for you and your circumstances. And you should have no shame in either accepting the graduate program and doing what you have to do to graduate, or rejecting the offer and making sure you're taking care of yourself or your family in the way that you think is best. But if you're trying to figure out what is going to work best for you or what are some realities that come with student loans, I would check out this video next, as it goes down the most important things to know about student loans. If you found at least 2 things useful, hit the thumbs up so YouTube will share this video with others who might need it. And as always, your support helps a small YouTuber like me continue to grow. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.